best strategy for Africa in terms of climate action has to do with a number of issues. One, and fundamentally, the issue of capacity building, capacity development. I think this is an area that Africa needs to improve upon to ensure that most of the actions that happen at community levels especially are strengthened through capacity building. We need to empower our farmers, especially those in rural communities. We need to empower local actors who are directly involved in climate actions at the local level. So for me, building capacity is a very, very important strategy to be able to implement actions on climate change. Secondly is the issue of financing. I think access to financing is very important, is very critical, especially once again for community people. There was a recent study that was done by the International Institute of Environment and Development. And one of the results from that study was that less than 10% of all funds that come from various sources for climate finance actually reach local actors. So telling us that there is a huge gap between the source of the finance and the intended places where the funds are supposed to reach. So I think financing for climate action is very, very important, and as communities, as countries, that is an area that we need to put a lot of efforts on. For Africa's NDCs, it's very important for us to have better coordination, a better way of reporting on, one, the NDCs, and two, on how we implement the NDCs. If you recall, when the NDCs were being submitted in 2015, just before the Paris COP21, a number of very important sectors, agriculture, infrastructure, energy, were not intensively consulted in putting together the NDC. So I think going forward, we need to have a lot more institutional collaboration across the different sectors to ensure that all the very important players, institutions and actors involved in NDC development are part of the process. Because the NDCs represent a commitment from countries to implement key provisions of the Paris Agreement. So we need to have that coordinated approach in the development of the NDCs and its implementation. Africa's focus in implementing the NDCs has again to do with the means of implementation as described in the Paris Agreement. So we're looking again at capacity development, our capacity to be able to attract investments, our capacity to be able to raise resources, because we are in the same market, competing for the same resources with the developed countries of the Latin American region, the Southeast Asia region, and other places. And it's important that we improve our capacities to be able to attract the resources and also to utilize the resources once we get them. So I think capacity development is a very, very important aspect. Then secondly, also, I think in terms of putting together a coordinated African approach, an African voice. I think over the period, the African constituency has done so much to be able to present a coordinated front. But I think we can do much better in bringing together the other thematic sectors to be part of our negotiation processes, so that when we go to these international fora, we are able to present a united, coordinated and coherent African approach to these issues.